We get all that information, and that allows us to enrich all sorts of features within the app. This also allows us to do a Find My Car, so it's basically like Find My iPhone.
Sweet.
75% of cars that were stolen on buy miles policies have been recovered.
Today I'm joined by Oliver Baxter, who is head of brand and product at Buy Miles, the car insurance company that lets you pay by the mile. Buy Miles recently became the first British insurtech to gain an open banking license, and today Oliver will talk us through the design of the app, but also explain about what open banking technology means for the insurtech industry. Oliver, thanks for joining us today. How you been?
Yeah, good.
Yeah?
You?
I'm all good. Cold, but we'll get through it. So to jump straight into it, tell us a bit about Buy Miles for those who don't know.
Okay, sure thing. So, in a nutshell, Buy Miles is the UK's only real-time pay-per-mile car insurance product. That's important because it basically, we believe that lower mileage drivers were getting a really raw deal on their car insurance for far too long. We define lower mileage as anyone that drives less than about 7,000 miles a year. 7,134 miles a year is the UK average, according to MOT data from the DVLA. And basically those lower mileage drivers were subsidising the cost of insurance for higher mileage drivers. So our insurance basically allows you to pay a fixed upfront cost to cover your car while it's parked for the whole year. And then you just pay a few pence for every mile that you drive on a pay-as-you-go basis. And you just pay that off at the end of each month like a mobile phone bill.
I'm interested to see, to hear about, like, I guess, the problem discovery. Like, where did this come about? Was it, I guess, an idea that someone had, and then you guys went into sort of testing? How did like the problem discovery start?
So James and Callum, the CEO and CTO, they met at Goldman Sachs while building a trading platform for the bank. Callum's very, very experienced software developer, consultant, that sort of thing. And yeah, James was working in insurance and pensions in the bank. So they sort of had a background that lent itself to thinking about challenges such as this one. They saw trends in the banking industry. They thought there was an opportunity for car insurance to do the same, and no one else was really doing this. Norwich Union, now Aviva, did actually try to do a pay-per-mile product back in, I think it was 2006 or 7. That was before the iPhone even existed. So they were essentially just a little bit too early. Telematics technology wasn't quite there. People didn't have really intelligent computers in their pockets all the time. So I think it was just looking at that again and saying, okay, let's try that because we think the technology is now ready. And they'd also spotted this trend in the market that lower mileage drivers were getting penalised. People who declared that they were driving under 3,000 to 4,000 miles a year were actually being charged £233 more than people who said they were driving over 11,000 miles a year, which doesn't make sense on so many levels. Because if you're not driving, you're far less likely to have an accident.
And how long has Buy Miles been around for?
So the company, according to Companies House, I think they launched it in 2016. I joined in April 2017, but we didn't launch the product until May. Well, actually, the official launch was July 2018.
Okay. And I guess a bit more granular about like the Buy Miles features. What are the marquee features? I know you guys have like this plug-in system that goes into.
Yeah, so this is basically a matchbox-sized device that plugs into the car's OBD2 socket. That stands for onboard diagnostics. The socket that any mechanic would plug into to scan your car for engine fault codes. So this takes a tiny little bit of power from the car, and it has a SIM card in there that basically communicates your GPS, so that we can work out where you're going, how long the journeys are. It also has an inbuilt like gyroscope, so that we can detect if we think you've had an accident. So that would basically, for us, when you have the Buy Miles app, it will just, at the end of every journey, it will let you know that you finished the journey, this is how much it costs, this is your start and end point, which obviously we haven't done a great deal of work yet on sort of journey insights, but in the future you could start to look at how much over the course of the year have I spent driving to my mum's house? Could I have got the train instead? Should I be getting an Uber or car sharing? We do already have a journey estimate feature, so you can put in 2 points. Tell you how much it will cost you in insurance, but you can also calculate how much it might be costing you in petrol.
Wow.
So then you can compare that.
Wow.
We're really proud that we're encouraging people and rewarding people for driving less, because the less time you spend on the road, the less likely you are to have an accident.
Yeah.
But equally, the less you spend on car insurance.
Exactly.
So it's a win-win situation for everyone, for wallets, for the planet.
Sweet. And something that like the whole team over at 11FS has been pretty crazy about is this whole open banking license deal you've got going on. What does this mean for your product? What does this mean for like insurance in general?
So the whole point of the Buy Miles app is that we're trying to make car ownership easier.
Yep.
So this little miles tracker is just part of that story. We actually, before the open banking license in November last year, we launched the world's connected car insurance policy, where we've got rid of this altogether. And now for certain cars, the first car we support is Tesla. You don't even need one of these because the Tesla's already connected to the internet. So you just log in with your Tesla account, that connects us with the mileometer, and we just take the miles straight off the car. So we're moving away from this because that's where cars are going. And it's obviously, I guess it's a point of friction for some people. But yeah, the open banking license is really, really exciting. That's basically going to allow us to give more vulnerable people access to more flexible insurance products. Credit scores sometimes get a bit of a bad rap. I mean, obviously Credit Karma, who are doing it a little bit differently, they've just been acquired by Intuit, so there's an appetite for that. Monzo, there was a bit of controversy about whether they were reporting to all the different credit rating agencies. But credit scores are not traditionally, sorry, I'm trying to word this in a diplomatic way, but traditional credit score companies don't necessarily have the best data. So I had a friend who couldn't get a zip car because someone in the rental property he lived in was defaulting on a loan with someone else. So they just looked at the postcode and they said, right, you've got a bad credit score, you can't get a zip car. So basically the open banking regulation means that when we are checking credit scores to see if someone, because obviously this is a flexible product, so we need to check to see if you're going to be able to pay your payments each month. At the moment, we're beholden to a third party's data source to tell us whether someone's going to be able to pay their insurance. But through open banking, you could give us permission to just check whether you've been able to pay your car insurance regularly and on time. So it's just about accessing those APIs, seeing what you're spending your money on, and seeing that you're paying it regularly each month. And that trade-off just means that we don't need to rely on someone else's data. That will also allow us to build smarter, more flexible models for people. So we're really excited about it.
Sounds exciting, sweet. And before we jump into the journey, it's just something I want to clear up, just so I've got the right idea. You guys provide insurance personally, and it's not through a third party?
We are what's known as, boring insurance bit alert. We're what's known as an MGA. So that's a managing general agent, which is essentially an insurance broker. We set our own pricing, but we sell insurance that is underwritten by a third party. So our launch partner was AXA. When we launched our Tesla policies, we work with La Parisienne Assurances. So these are really, really experienced. AXA is one of the oldest and most experienced insurers in the world. We do everything right up until if you need to make a claim, you'll go through to AXA, basically. So,
sweet. So I guess we've heard a lot about it. Let's jump straight into the journeys. I guess the first journey we'll jump into naturally is getting a quote. So what we'll see on the screen here is from the website, you're able to jump into an onboarding journey where they tell you a bit about your car. You enter your reg code, number plate, and then off of the back of that, it tells you what car you have, which is pretty cool. It then takes you through, I guess, a step-by-step journey, which I think is really cool. That at the top there, you have, I guess, what we call visibility of system status in UX, an overview of what's coming up. You then get into a bit about the driver as well. So Harry Windsor.
I thought be topical.
Is applying for car insurance. And then, we just kind of go through this process, asking about your personal information, where you were born, where you've lived, how many children under 16, go into a bit about your home address as well.
Yeah, I mean, so far so typical. It's quite similar to the questions that you might expect on a more traditional car insurance form. However, we've tried to strip as many questions out as possible. So right up from the beginning, we enrich a lot of data. earlier on the car page, we check the DVLA to see how many miles you drove last year with the DVLA. Not mentioning any names, but since we launched that, I've seen a few comparison sites doing the same thing. So imitation is the finest form of flattery. We also check with DVLA when that car last changed hands. So we can say, instead of when did you purchase your car, and you just need to guess or go and check your paperwork, it already says, did you get it on this date? If we're wrong, please update it. So we stripped out as much as possible, and we enrich as much as possible on here to allow a lot of speed when getting the quote. I think we very, very consciously, I don't know, you've probably had other people talk about Luke Wroblewski. We used his book religiously when we were building this. So we didn't want to just create the same form that everyone else had, but at the same time, we believed that there are so many things in car insurance. Unlike content insurance, unlike travel insurance, unlike setting up a bank account even, there's so much information that you have to collect. We didn't think a chatbot was necessarily right. We didn't think a mobile app approach was necessarily right, because car insurance is bought by an incredibly diverse group of people. We have people from the age of 23 to 78 on our policies. So we thought, make it web-based, make it a form, but make it a really, really beautiful form. So we've done a lot of work on, every single element of that. Validation, auto-scroll, error states, all of those are custom written. So we're really proud of it, even though it's just a form.
Take pride in that, because we've done, over in Pulse, we're often sort of like contracted out to do a couple of onboarding journeys, and it's a journey to everyone else, but there's a lot of work that goes into it. And I guess the question I wanted to ask you, because this is something we've run into a lot, is, as you said, it's always important to kind of try and make the process as quick and seamless as possible. So you're talking about stripping out questions. I want to know what kind of compliance issues you came involved with that, and like how that fits in with your, I guess, decision engineering as well.
To be honest with you, it's not really from a compliance perspective. Obviously, you need to know your customer. But after that point, it's our decision and our decision with the underwriters on how we do that pricing. So, for example, on your podcast, on the InsurTech Insiders podcast, we had James, our CEO, and Freddie McNamara from Cover. They were talking about some of the interesting things that people don't know about insurance. For example, if you declare that you park your car in a garage, you're more likely to get a more expensive quote, because traditional car insurers don't have any way to check that, and they assume that you're lying. Therefore, asking someone where they park their car is totally pointless, because you're not going to believe them, and you're just using it as a factor to catch them out. So we don't ask you where you park your car. As a matter of fact, we know exactly where you park your car, but we won't be changing the price based on that. But basically, we just strip that question out entirely. When it comes to insurance, the more questions you ask, the more granular you're going to be able to be about assessing the risk. So in some cases, we just make an assumption, or we just skip that one out, because we don't think it's a very good indicator of risk.
Because that's interesting, because you work with, I guess, underwriters, AXA, La Parisienne. How do they feel about, I guess, the data you then pass on to them when it comes to these profiles that you're creating, and I guess you're omitting or making assumptions on certain questions? Has that been seamless, or any pushback from their side?
I think it's been pretty seamless. We've proven that we can enrich the data to a very high standard. We work very, very closely with them when it comes to updating the MID as well. So I think everyone's happy. It basically just makes a more seamless experience for the customer, and hopefully that results in more sales.
So there's also two bits I wanted to talk about, where you said you pull forth, you enter the number plate, you get the car information provided for you. You also said you have, like, I guess, the MOT information to find out how many miles you assume they drove last year. Where are you pulling that information from? Is there kind of like an API?
So it's a combination. There is a DVLA API, and then we also have a third party we work with that enriches all that data. So you put in your reg plate, instantly we know every single bit about that vehicle. We know the mileage, we know last time that was registered, so that will imply whether it was purchased, when it was last purchased. So yeah, that's the majority, but we're starting to get more and more information on that, because we've built a lot of additional app features. So, for example, We just launched a couple of weeks ago. If you have a miles tracker policy, we know the emissions of your vehicle. Okay. So if you drive into the London ultra low emission zone, congestion charging zone, you go through Dartford crossing, you go through the Durham road charging user road charging zone, which I didn't know existed. But basically, we will now give you a notification in the app and say your car is eligible to pay a fee. Make sure you pay it by midnight tonight or midnight tomorrow.
Nice.
Otherwise, you might get fined.
Nice.
I personally have been fined. I personally went into the office and said, I will pay the developer who builds this feature 80 quid, which is the cost of the fine, to please launch this feature. I didn't actually have to pay anyone. They just did it out of the goodness of their heart.
Nice.
But yeah, so we get all that information, and that allows us to enrich all sorts of features within the app. This also allows us to do a Find My Car, so it's basically like Find My iPhone.
Sweet.
75% of cars that were stolen on BuyMiles policies have been recovered.
Oof.
We had our customer service team were called by a very brave member who was actually driving back from the scene of a crime. He didn't commit the crime.
Okay.
His car was stolen. The police were too busy to go and pick it up. And then the next thing we know, he's reported the claim. And then he's called us up. He's like, I've got gloves on. Am I doing the right thing? I'm driving it directly to the police station. Hopefully I'm not going to damage the forensic evidence, but I've got the car back, and that's all that matters.
Okay, wow.
So yeah, that's our mobile phone app, allowing people to re-steal their stolen cars.
Got to put that up on a testimonial somewhere. That's some bragging rights. Yeah. But to get a bit into like the nitty-gritty of design, because I'm a design fanboy. Yeah. Something I've only really seen on cover is, I guess, that reg plate, like actually pulling in the reg plate design. Big fan of it, so thank you. Talk to us more about like these interesting visual cues. You even have like car animation at the end. Talk to us about, it's something we always talk about, like delight factors. You know, talk to us about like why these delight factors are important in these onboarding journeys, why you've chosen to put certain things certain places. We talk a lot about number blindness. So when you buy a paper mile policy, you see several costs. You see the fixed annual cost, which covers your car while it's parked for the whole year. You then see your per mile rate, which is what you pay per mile that you drive. And then you see an estimate, because obviously we're on price comparison sites and aggregators. People just expect to see one number. So we then have an estimate, which is your per mile rate times by the number of miles that either you said you drove or the MOT data said you drove. Okay. And that gives you your overall estimate for the year. Obviously, if you drive a little more, you'll pay a little more. If you drive a little less, then you'll pay a little less. But that's like trying to display those numbers to people when they're not expecting to see any of those numbers, especially if they've come from a comparison site. They have a tiny little blurb about us and they get on our website, and they may not even at that point realise that they need to plug in a box. And they will consider that, I've heard about black box insurance, that's Big Brother, isn't it? Yeah. That will just track the way I drive and penalise me, which we do not do. So there's a lot of education there. And we just had so many people phoning us up, just saying, right, so this paper mile product, I love the price, but can you explain to me how it works? So our customer service team say, well, how about you explain how you think it works? They would explain it perfectly. And then we would just say, yeah, that's right. And then they would just say, okay, well, I just really wanted to like speak to a human, just check I understand it. So the video animation that we created was basically an animation of that conversation. Okay. So it's a dynamic video. It's actually not a video at all. It's just built in HTML5. Yeah. But it pulls through your quote and just talks through. So you said this. If you drive this mileage, it will cost you this at this rate. If you drive less, it will cost you less. If you drive more, it will cost you more. And then it obviously talks through some of the benefits of the app, talks through our excellent Trustpilot rating, things like that. So just a bit of reassurance to basically try and lessen the load on our customer support team. While we love to speak to people, sometimes you just need a nice friendly voice explaining something to you, and that doesn't need to be in real time. And off the back of that, did you find a reduce in people calling in? Yeah, we saw a reduction in people calling in. We also saw an improvement in sales, especially from people that had watched the video because they really understood it. We saw a reduction in cancellations because, and again, one of the other challenges is because our product is so much fairer, genuinely saves people, not everyone, but saves people who are right for a paper mile policy so much money, people just sort of become blind to the fact that
there's any sort of technology, they click all the way through. Suddenly they realise, oh, this is a little bit different.
Yeah.
So we almost have had to do work to stop people at points, so that they don't progress any further if they're not happy with it. Some
much necessary friction to kind of, Makes sense. I guess the next part we'll jump into is the second part of that onboarding journey. So what we're seeing here is, I guess, your policy overview.
Yep. So I think you've missed the top of it, but basically this is all about the miles tracker, the bit that we're expanding there. So that's just reassuring you it is compatible in your car, where you can find it. You saw the video on the right hand side there. This is just where you add any additional extras. On mobile, this is a particularly good journey because I think we're the only car insurance product out there that will let you skip the whole extras section. So rather than having to do, we call it I think it's like a computer game where you have to avoid all the extras, like the sort of Ryanair checkout experience. No shade on Ryanair, we're just trying to make money. But we just thought we'd take that out. People are here to buy paper mile car insurance. If they don't want an additional product, don't try and hammer it down their throat. This is the pay page, obviously. You have to set up your monthly billing. You can choose, that's a nice we're quite proud of that. If you get too many errors, we pop up and give you some help. You can choose your monthly billing date, so you can align it with when your paycheck comes in.
Nice.
Obviously, Harry putting in his card details. Doesn't look like we believe they're real card details. They're not. But so this is just the purchase flow. Again, really pleased. We've done a lot of work on this pay page, done a lot of work on the validation and the error states. And then a successful purchase.
Nice.
We also use 3 random words instead of a policy number, which people quite like. So this person's canal ladder binary. My policy is machine bamboo heart. It's a test policy, so you'll be able to do anything with that. But that's just a little bit, like, people identify themselves as their policy reference wording now. So it's another little surprise and delight factor. It's just a bit more simple, just makes sense.
And do people understand that this is something that they have to kind of use to refer to their policy?
Yeah, I mean, we can look up by reg, we can look up by their name, all that sort of stuff. But we do have to write all over the app, and on that success page, we use 3 words instead of a number, because early on we had people getting in touch saying, I think there must be some sort of mistake. I was waiting for a string of unintelligible numbers.
Exactly.
You've given me 3 words.
And they're perfectly fine with it.
We get much fewer queries now that we actually point that out to people.
Wow. So I guess first thing I wanted to talk about was, I guess, working backwards, is this completion message at the end. It's kind of it's almost like rewarding the user for going through this kind of arduous task of applying for a quote. So I guess talk to us about that final page. Talk to us about that final page.
I mean, we've taken the approach. I'm actually a copywriter by trade, so I used to work in creative agencies, and all the time, as a company, we're always thinking about how the customer feels. Our customer service team are always asking why. Why is the person, not what is the person asking, why are they asking this question? And ultimately, why has the person come to our website to do what they're doing right now? And unfortunately, it's admin. Dress it up whatever way you want, but it's admin. They only came to us, probably. Car insurance is a hugely commoditized product. They probably only came to us because we were cheapest. We can pretend it's because of all of our wonderful app features, but ultimately they probably came because the price was good initially. So you've done it. Well done. It wasn't as arduous as you thought. Hopefully we've made it a little bit more pleasurable along the way. But I think that's how people feel. It's just a tick on a to-do list. So tick it off. You've done it.
Nice. And I guess initial reactions, so we now come to the end of this, when you first tested this journey, talk to us about initial reactions from users. How did they feel? Was this the first iteration, or talk to us about the various iterations.
When we first tested it, we had a massive waiting list because we were doing something quite original, and the press had written about us before we even launched. The Guardian wrote about us for the first time in January 2017. That was over a year before we launched. So we had this massive waiting list. One thing we did do, which I wouldn't necessarily do again, was we built the quotes so that people could get a quote before we were actually able to sell it.
Okay.
So we sent it out to the waiting list and we said, if you want to see what your price will be, have a first look at our quote site. It was buggy as sorry, am I allowed to say it?
No. Yeah.
It was buggy as hell. It was not that attractive. We had weird error states appearing all over the place. And we had very, very, very restrictive underwriting rules.
Yeah.
So we had this sorry page if we couldn't underwrite you, and then that link to a type form for you to give us feedback. That was a torrent of abuse.
Yeah.
But it was some really good feedback.
Yeah.
And we've been constantly iterating on that flow forever. This flow will probably not be the flow that you see today, tomorrow.
Yeah.
We're always A/B testing.
Of course.
To be honest with you, we've got so much data now that we'd like to strip it all back to the very beginning and start again. Because, I've read the Google Sprint book and I really just want to get everyone in a room and be like, what have we learned? Let's take it all apart.
Yeah.
But our dev team might have something to say about it.
All right, so talk to us about, get a bit granular about certain points. So when did this, you talked about it earlier, this fleshing out the quotes and prices, and then you have like the per mile rate as well, just above the annual cost and the RAC breakdown. So talk to us about the need to flesh that out there, have it like, I guess you have it on like this sticky scroll that always follows you everywhere. Like talk to us about that particular decision. And when did that come in? Was that there initially?
So from a compliance perspective, we've had to tread really, really carefully.
Yep.
We're obviously FCA regulated, and we had to kind of go to the FCA originally to come up with the concept and get that approved. We've worked with like lawyers and compliance specialists to make sure at every step of the journey that we're doing stuff that's very compliant and treats customers fairly. But we almost had to over-explain the policy because ultimately we don't want people to be confused, just pay that fixed upfront cost and then get their first bill at the end of the month and be like, why are you still charging me? I thought I paid it all in one go.
Yeah.
So we've done that as a story. We're constantly A/B testing different ways. I think we missed the top of the quotes page, but there's a calculator there where you can update the mileage in real time to see how that affects your price. So also, that sticky header, it follows you throughout because you want to see what am I paying today, but then also contractually, what am I signing up to pay for each mile? And that for us has been like really important, that that's always present.
And before we move on to the next journey, something else you mentioned while we were looking through it is you said after a certain number of error states, you pop up would that be an intercom? Yeah, you pop up an intercom chat. Talk to us about, I guess, how did you arrive, what specific number is that, how did you arrive at that number?
To be honest with you, we only really do that on the pay page because I think you can make a lot of errors whilst you're filling in a car insurance form, especially we've got quite good validation. I say good validation, it basically means if you type something that doesn't look like a mobile number, you're going to get an error, but you might have just typed one straight digit. If you've misspelt your email address and it looks like a .com rather than a .com, you missed out a dot. So it would be a bit trigger happy if we're popping up every 5 minutes to say sorry. But on the pay page, you're taking that page quite seriously. We really want you to get through it. So I think we've got it currently set to 3 errors. Maybe it might even just be 2. But it's a relatively low friction way of saying, hey, we're here if you need a hand. If you aren't very computer savvy and you don't recognize the intercom logo, which not everyone does, then heads up, we're here to help. We also pop up on the quote page as well, because just to say, hey, we know we're a bit different. If you've got any questions, give us a shout. Intercom's awesome. The only thing, again, not criticism of intercom so much, just constructive feedback. We're probably going to be building our own chatbot feature because their chatbot is not as advanced as we would like it to be. And there's so many simple queries that we could fix with the chatbot.
Makes sense. I guess to jump straight into the onboarding journey, and at this point we switch to mobile. So here we see, I guess, like a welcome page, but I'm guessing at this point you probably have signed in already. You activate it and then it tells you what car you have and then where to plug in your OBD socket. I think it's pretty cool that, does that illustration change per car? That's actually really cool actually. Tells you to hold tight, and I really like this because it kind of gives you a lot more contextual need about why you might want to turn on your notifications as well, which I think is pretty cool. And then you're activated, and that's like all real simple, happened in like less than 30 seconds.
Yeah, I think we benefit from the fact that the front door is not on the app.
Yeah.
So you come to the app once you've got a policy.
Yep.
So we can keep it really stripped down. There are two other elements that you might see in there. You might have to verify your mobile phone number.
Yeah.
That's just a pretty standard mobile phone verification screen. We text you a code and you type it in.
Yeah.
But ultimately, that is it.
Yeah.
We thought there was going to be so much more friction to installing this. But as I say, some of the people that are on our policies are up to the age of 70.
Yeah.
And yeah, there really hasn't been.
Wow.
We had our first annual renewals in May, May last year. And we've been amazed at the number of people actually who we've never spoken to throughout the duration of their policy.
Wow.
Because when we did our first beta, we saw a lot of people struggling to plug these in.
Yeah.
We built up a massive database, tens of thousands of cars that are manufactured in the UK, every single OBD location point. A very, 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 very patient intern called Dakshan deserves a big shout out for that. But also our CEO, James, got really down into the weeds of that just to make sure it was accurate. We then wrote our own plain English explanations for every single car. Then those animations, just because if you don't plug it in, that's the lifeblood of the policy. Yeah. And we don't want you to regret buying this cheap policy. Oh, I knew this would be. Yeah. So if you've got a good price that works for you, we want to make it really seamless and actually pleasurable to get activated. And
that, because I'm a big fan of that illustration, like how many different iterations of that particular illustration do you have?
Believe it or not, there's actually only 9.
Right.
Yeah. Oh. So I think it's a legal requirement. The OBD2 socket has to be within 2 feet of the steering wheel. Okay. So it can only be to the left, to the right, underneath, below the glove box, in the glove box, or in the like near the
middle out. Yeah.
So you've got a rough illustration for the area, and then you have a detailed description. There are also some cars where, because the miles tracker's got a certain depth, sometimes it's behind a panel and it won't close. Okay. So we know that too. So we'll warn you during the quote experience. It's not for the faint of heart. We'll be sending you an extension cable and some Velcro so you can position it somewhere else. Okay. And then you'll get a slightly different onboarding process. Okay. So we put a lot of effort into that, just because otherwise that could be the point at which you lose someone. They just wanted to. You did it. You did your car insurance. Now welcome to 3 hours worth of trying to plug this thing in.
No, it makes sense. Before we move on to the final journey, one thing I want to talk about was the tone of voice for BuyMiles. You have I guess you don't really have like a particular demographic. It's essentially it's just if you don't drive your car over like 7,000 miles. So how is your tone of voice fashioned to kind of adhere to all your different?
I think it was it last year? Last year or the year before we won, we were the first insurance company in 30 years to win a Plain English award from the Plain English campaign for our policy documents. Oh wow. As I mentioned in a previous life, I was a copywriter, so words are quite important to me. But I think our intentions dovetail quite neatly with the FCA's, treating customers fairly, be clear, fair and not misleading. And we believe that insurance should be much simpler, should be stripped of all jargon. Yeah. So that's basically what we've done. But at the same time, maybe we might be a bit different to some of the other people you have in here. We're not purely focused on millennials. Yeah. In fact, we don't insure people who've only just passed their driving test. Okay. You have to have a bit of driving experience. So you'll probably notice that our tone of voice is not littered with emojis. Yeah. We want to be not all things to all people. I'd say we describe our demographic as like savvy drivers. They're people who know when they see a good deal. They're the kind of people that fly EasyJet rather than BA, just because if you're going on a city break, it makes sense. So we want to treat them as adults, we want to treat them as human beings, but we don't want to litter everything with in-jokes and impenetrable language and emojis, because they're just here to get car insurance. So simplicity, but charm. Plain speaking, short sentences, small words.
Makes sense. I guess to jump into our final journey, we're making changes to the policy. So here, you're on the app now, and you then jump into your My Policy. You're then given an overview of your policy, and you're able to, I guess, make changes to your policy at this point. You're able to add drivers to your policy as well. So how will that work in particularly?
So this is probably, might seem bland, but this is probably the feature that I'm most excited about and that we just absolutely nailed, if I don't mind saying so myself. Basically, that's Markle that's been blurred out there. So we realised when we launched the policy, you could phone us up, just like every other car insurance company, and if you needed to make a change to your policy, you could phone us up and you could ask us to make a change.
Yeah.
We also offered that ability. We have live chat through intercom in the app.
Okay.
Now, our phone lines are not bad when it comes to hold times, so we could help you on the phone. But we found that people absolutely loved doing their car insurance admin on intercom, on live chat, whilst they were watching the telly or doing something else.
Okay.
So what that meant to our poor customer service team is someone would say, hi, I'd like to add a driver to my policy. Our customer service team would come back with a bunch of questions, and that person would wander off, microwave their dinner, go back and watch a bit more TV, and then eventually they would come back and give them the answers. We found that on average, the average policy change was taking about half an hour for our customer service team to do, because they were getting all this information and inputting it.
Yeah.
So we thought the next step, we'll just send people back through the quote. So they can change anything on their policy. Our customer service team will check it, tell them what the new price is, and then put it through. That was great. But then we saw people sort of abusing this service because they would just go in and be like, well, while I'm adding a driver, maybe I'll just change the number of years of NCD, like no claims discount. Wow. So our customer service team would have to check for that.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's not do that. So then we built this wizard, which basically runs through only the questions that you need for the thing that you're going to do.
Yep.
Then it explains all of the stuff that you could possibly need about your price.
Yep.
The difference in price, the difference in upfront, the difference in per mile rate, why it might have changed, and then basically you can confirm it all there instantly, there and then. So if you're in the garage forecourt, you just bought a new car, change it over right then, put your password in, and then make the change. Done. Simple as that. And I think we were really, really pleased with the way we launched this, and I think being a young startup, things can be moving a million miles an hour. You can rush things. We did wireframes. We did really, really extensive user testing. Then our customer service team sent the self-serve link out to people that wanted to make changes. So we had a really, really sort of drip feeding launch. So we could see if there were any problems when we were sending that link out. Then we launched it without telling anyone. We didn't even announce it in the release notes. Sorry, Apple. And basically, people started using it. We only announced it in the we launched it like November, December last year, because it's mostly through a web view. So in all seriousness, Apple, there wasn't that much in the app.
Okay, so that is kind of like a web frame that's loaded on top. No way.
So that's consistent whether you. So we don't just have a mobile phone up. I mentioned multiple demographics. We have the same thing in our web dashboard. So you don't need a mobile phone at all at any stage, but you have a very consistent experience across mobile and web. It means that we can basically fix that flow without having to basically resubmit an app to the App Store every time. So, and it's always consistent. And then eventually we announced it in our release notes, and we still haven't sent an email out to let people know that it's happening. I think people just assume that everything else that we've done is so frictionless. Well, I guess I'd have to go into my policy to make changes. They've discovered it themselves. Everyone saves a lot of time.
Wow. And are you finding that people are no more having to call up or go through intercom?
Only, yeah. I mean, to be honest, in the first week that we launched it, we saw this graph of self-serve policy changes versus manual ones, and the self-serve was already over 50% without, in the first week of just launching it.
Wow.
So people just expect this sort of convenience, and when you don't have it, they're surprised. But having done the same sort of experience with other car insurers, I'm pretty pleased that I'm pretty confident we're leading the way.
Yeah. I'm excited. That's actually sounds pretty dope actually. Yeah. Especially to not have to go through as you said, you launched it and it's pretty it's taken off pretty seamlessly. So that's exciting. So also before we move on, I wanted to ask about, because you said this is like, I guess, a web frame, and you're kind of in the app, but you also pull forth your, I guess, design language from your site. How are you able to ensure that that design language is seamless from app to like web, and to make sure it doesn't feel like a whole different experience entirely?
We've worked, actually, this is a good time for me to drop the bombshell. We're actually hiring for a product design lead to lead the UX and UI of all of our products going forward. Up until this point, we've worked with a variety of freelancers.
Okay.
But we've been very careful. We had a guy called Dan, shout out Dan, who did a lot of the work.
Yeah.
He's made a very consistent design language that we use throughout all of our products.
Yep.
And I think, again, I guess working with a bunch of freelancers, we could still make our design systems more efficient. We could still, the way we develop them, we could be more efficient. But ultimately, we've got a very limited brand palette in terms of colours, fonts, typefaces, and we've set quite. They're not strict rules, but we've set quite clear rules about how to use that. So we believe that's consistent across all of the touch points.
But it works, and it's very consistent, even like down to your iconography as well. So I'm a big fan of it.
Thank you.
Also, I guess because we didn't really ask it in the beginning, how is your, I guess, product team broken down into? What's the size of it currently?
Currently, it's very small.
Yeah.
There's myself. I head up the brand and product, so that means that we can be very consistent across all of the customer experience, which I think is really important. We have Kirsty, who's our product manager, and then we basically just have designers that we work with.
Nice.
So we're currently hiring for a product design lead, and also a designer for more of our sort of above the line advertising, things like that. Check out our LinkedIn or email us at jobs@bymiles.co.uk.
I guess that's the end of sort of like the journey part. I guess before we get you out of here, big plans for 2020. Talk to us. What's in the books? What are we expecting for?
What are we not planning? Big growth. So we've got ambitious growth targets. Building out more features in our app. As I mentioned, we've got Find My Car. We've also got Car Medic, where you can scan your car for faults.
Okay.
But really enriching that experience. I would love to do more work on our claims experience. I'd like to do what we did with self-serve policy changes for our claims experience, because that is still, because it's with the underwriters, it's still over the phone.
Yeah.
I'd love to bring that to be mobile first.
Okay.
But not mobile only. We'll be expanding into more connected vehicles.
Okay.
So we already support Teslas and certain connected Mercedes.
Okay.
But we'll be launching with more kind of manufacturers. So unfortunately, this beautiful piece of cardboard engineering will be retired, because we just don't need to send you anything.
Yeah.
But the trees will be happy. We're growing our team massively. I'd love for us to be able to split out into more cross-functional teams. We currently have, I see a lot of people on this program talk about how the luxury of having one designer, one developer.
For a feature.
Yeah. We've got a way to go before we get there.
But I mean, what a way you've come with, just like the small team you have. So big ups to you guys. I guess, finally, any advice for people creating new products in the FS space, in insurance as well in particular, because that's something that we're excited over at 11FS to see grow over the next year and a bit?
I would say it sounds really boring, but put compliance front and center, because once you get your head around that, and if you align your core company values with that, everything else will flow behind it. It will set you free to do way more interesting things. That's once you know, if you know that you're doing it in the lifeblood of your organization and your values and your design systems and your copy and all that is compliant. The world's your lobster.
Sweet. No, thanks for that. And I guess that's it for today. Thanks so much for tuning in. Stop by next week for more insights and journeys. If you want to see more of 11FS Pulse, head over to pulse.11fs.com, where you can also request a demo. If you've got any questions about the product or want to suggest a journey for us to include on our platform or even the show, hit us up at pulse@11fs.com or find us on Twitter at 11FS Pulse. Oliver, you've already mentioned, but reiterate one more time, where can they find out more about Buy Miles? Where can they apply for this amazing product design lead role?
Go to buymiles.co.uk, follow us on Twitter at buymiles, and yeah, go on LinkedIn if you want to do it the professional way.
Great, and we'll see you guys next week. Take care.